For the past 9 years, I have been tracking housing markets across 3 continents, watching retirees drain their savings trying to afford island living in places like Hawaii, where a modest 2-bedroom condo now runs $850,000 and property taxes alone can eat $6,000 annually. While everyone is obsessing over Maui and Oahu, I quietly researched 9 islands where you can actually own waterfront property, pay less in annual costs than most people spend on rent in Kansas City, and wake up to ocean views without winning the lottery. Number 3 is a Caribbean island where Americans can buy beachfront land for under $45,000 right now, and the entire annual cost of living, including property tax, utilities, and groceries, runs about $1,400 a month. And back in 2019, when Hurricane Dorian devastated the Bahamas and sent property values into chaos across the region, these 9 islands barely saw a price fluctuation because most mainland buyers have never heard of them. The islands everyone knows about get the panic. The ones I am about to show you stay stable. Number 9 sits off the coast of Central America in the warm currents of the Caribbean, a place called Utila in Honduras. Before you assume Honduras means crime and instability, and no infrastructure, let me give you 3 numbers. The average home price on Utila right now is $185,000 for something waterfront. The monthly cost of living for a retired couple including rent, food, utilities, and transportation runs about $1,200. And the island has had 0 hurricanes make direct landfall in the past 40 years because of its southern position in the Caribbean basin. Most people do not know Utila exists. The ones who do know it as a dive destination where you can get PADI certified for $299, $1.5 what it costs in Florida. That keeps the island's economy stable, but its real estate price is absurdly low compared to what you're seeing in any other Caribbean market. I visited Utila in January 2020 right before the world shut down. Spent 11 days there tracking property listings, talking to expats, eating at the local spots, riding the dirt roads on a rented scooter. The island is roughly 9 miles long. There are no cars allowed in the main town. Everyone uses golf carts or walks. The vibe is slow, salt-soaked, deeply unpretentious. I met a retired teacher from Wisconsin who bought a 2-bedroom concrete house with a porch overlooking the water for $130,000 in 2018. Her annual property tax bill is $320, not monthly, annual. She told me her electric bill runs about $60 a month because she uses fans instead of air conditioning most of the year. Her water is included in a flat $15 monthly fee. Groceries cost her roughly $250 a month because she buys local fish, local fruit, and cooks at home. She estimated her total annual cost of living, including everything, at around $14,500. That is less than what a lot of people spend on their car payment and insurance. Practical mechanic here is simple. Fly into Roten, which gets direct flights from Houston, Miami, and Atlanta. Then take the island ferry from Roten to Utila. The ferry costs $28 each way and runs twice a day. Once you are on Utila, rent a place for a month through local real estate contacts, not Airbnb. A furnished 1-bedroom rental runs about $500 a month. Spend that month walking the island, meeting people, figuring out where you actually want to be. Do not buy sight unseen. Do not buy based on photos. Spend time there. The expat community is small and tight. People talk. You will hear quickly which sellers are fair and which ones are trying to unload problem properties. The trade-off is healthcare. Utila has a small clinic that can handle basics, minor infections, stitches, simple diagnostics. Anything serious requires a ferry to Roten and a flight to the mainland or back to the States. If you have a chronic condition that needs specialist monitoring, this is not your island. If you are generally healthy and just need routine checkups and the occasional antibiotic, Utila works. Most expats I talk to fly back to the US once a year for a full physical and dental work, then handle everything else locally. That is the calculus. You are trading proximity to advanced healthcare for a cost of living so low that you can bank the difference and pay cash for a medical flight if you ever need one. Number 8 is a Greek island in the Ionian Sea called Lefkada, connected to the mainland by a floating bridge and a narrow causeway. No ferry required. You can drive onto this island. That one detail changes everything about affordability because it means you are not dependent on boat schedules for groceries, for building materials, for anything. The result is an island that feels remote and tropical but operates with mainland-level costs. A 2-bedroom house in a village on Lefkada right now runs between $90,000 and $140,000 depending on how close you are to the beaches on the western coast. Monthly cost of living for a couple is roughly $1,600 including rent, food, utilities, and a car. Greece has a flat annual income tax of $2,100 for foreign retirees under a special visa program designed to attract outside money. You heard that right? If you move to Greece as a retiree and establish tax residency, your annual income tax is capped at $2,100 no matter what your pension or retirement income totals. That program launched in 2020 and most Americans still have no idea it exists. I did not visit Lefkada personally, but I spent 2 months on the Greek mainland in 2018 and traveled to 4 other islands during that time. What I learned is that Greek island prices vary wildly based on one factor: fame. Santorini is famous, Mykonos is famous, their prices reflect that. Lefkada is not famous outside of Greece. Greeks vacation there, Italians vacation there, Americans do not, that keeps prices rational. A retired couple from Toronto bought a renovated stone house in the village of Agios Nikitas on Lefkada for $120,000 in 2021. They documented the entire process on a blog I follow. Their monthly expenses break down like this: $150 for electric, $40 for water, $60 for internet, $350 for groceries, $80 for fuel, $200 for eating out twice a week, $100 for miscellaneous. Total $980 a month. They own the house outright, so no rent and no mortgage. Their property tax is $310 annually. Add the $2,100 flat income tax and their total fixed costs for the year come in under $14,000. They are spending less to live on a Greek island than they were spending on property tax alone in Ontario. The mechanic is the Greek residency visa for financially independent persons. You need to prove $2,000 per month in income from a pension, social security, retirement accounts, or similar. You cannot work in Greece on this visa, but you can live there full-time. Apply through the Greek consulate nearest you. Processing takes about 4 months. Once approved, you get a 1-year residency permit that renews annually as long as you maintain the income requirement. After 7 years of legal residency, you can apply for permanent residency. Most people I know who have done this hired an immigration lawyer in Athens to handle the paperwork. Cost was around $1,200, worth every cent to avoid the bureaucracy. The trade-off here is language. Outside the tourist zones, English is not widely spoken. You will need to learn functional Greek. Not fluent, but enough to navigate a hardware store, a municipal office, a doctor visit. If that sounds like a burden, this is not your spot. If that sounds like part of the adventure, Lefkada is one of the best value islands in Europe right now. Number 7 is off the coast of Belize in the Caribbean, a narrow strip of sand and mangrove called Caye Caulker. The island is 4 miles long and about a mile wide at its widest point. There are 3 sand roads, no cars, everyone bikes or walks. The vibe is aggressively laid back. The motto printed on half the t-shirts sold there is "Go Slow." Small 2-bedroom wood frame house on Caye Caulker runs between $150,000 and $210,000 depending on how close you are to the split, the narrow channel that divides the island. Monthly cost of living is about $1,800 for a couple. Belize uses the Belize dollar, which is pegged 2 to 1 with the US dollar and has been since 1976. That peg has never broken. US currency is accepted everywhere. Your ATM card works, your credit card works, there is no currency exchange stress. What makes Caye Caulker interesting for retirees is the Qualified Retired Persons Program Belize runs. If you're 45 or older and can prove $2,000 a month in stable income, you qualify for a special residency status that allows you to import all your household goods, a car, even a boat, duty-free. You pay no tax on any income sourced outside Belize. You get access to the Belizean healthcare system. And you can come and go from the country freely without visa hassles. The program has been running since 2001, and it is one of the easiest retirement visas in the Western Hemisphere. I know 2 separate couples who went through the QRP process. Both said start to finish took about 3 months and cost around $2,500 in application fees and legal costs combined. I visited Caye Caulker in March 2017 for 8 days. The island sits inside the Belize Barrier Reef, the second largest reef system in the world. The water on the east side is calm, clear, and absurdly blue. Snorkeling is world-class and free. You walk off the dock, swim 40 feet, and you are over coral and nurse sharks and rays. The west side faces the mainland, and the sunsets are the kind that look photoshopped but are not. I stayed in a small guest house for $50 a night. Ate rice and beans with stewed chicken from a street cart for $5. Drank Belican beer at a waterfront bar where locals were playing dominoes and nobody cared that I was the only white person in the place. The energy was calm. No hustle, no hard sell, just people living at a pace that stopped making sense to the rest of the world about 40 years ago. The mechanic here is to rent before you buy. Caye Caulker has a rental market that runs year-round because of the dive schools and the backpacker traffic. A furnished 1-bedroom runs about $700 a month off-season. Rent for 3 months. Meet the expats. There are maybe 300 full-time foreign residents on the island and they all know each other. Someone will know someone selling a house. Do not use a realtor unless you have to. Most transactions happen person to person. Bring a lawyer from Belize City to handle the contract and the title work. Cost is around $1,000. Do not skip that step. Property law in Belize is based on British common law and it is solid, but you need someone who knows how to verify a clean title. The trade-off is hurricanes. Cape Cocker got hit hard in 1961 by Hurricane Hattie. It has been brushed by storms since, but nothing catastrophic. That said, you are in the hurricane belt. June through November you need to be ready to evacuate if something big spins up. Most expats I talk to have a plan that involves a water taxi to Belize City and a hotel room on the mainland until it passes. Some people love that risk-reward equation. Some people do not. Know which one you are before you buy. Number 6 is off the coast of Nicaragua in the Caribbean, a pair of islands called the Corn Islands, Big Corn and Little Corn. Little Corn is the one that matters for this conversation. It is tiny, about 1 square mile, no roads, no cars, just sand paths and coconut palms and water so clear you can see the bottom at 20 feet. A small wooden house on Little Corn runs between $80,000 and $140,000. Monthly cost of living for a couple is around $1,100. That includes everything: food, utilities, propane, water, the occasional boat ride to Big Corn for supplies. Nicaragua is the second poorest country in Central America, and that poverty is a tragedy for the people who live there, but it also means the cost of goods is a fraction of what you pay anywhere else in the region. Nicaragua has a residency program called the Pensionado Visa. You need to prove $600 a month in pension income. That is it, not $2,000 like Belize or Greece. $600. Once approved, you get legal residency, the ability to import household goods duty-free, and access to the Nicaraguan healthcare system, which is limited but functional for basics. The application process takes about 60 days and costs roughly $1,200 including legal fees. I have not done this visa myself, but I have a contact who moved to Grenada, Nicaragua in 2016 on a pensionado visa and has renewed it 3 times without issue. I have not been to Little Corn, I am telling you that up front, but I have been to Big Corn in August 2015 and I took the water taxi over to Little Corn for a day visit. Big Corn has a small airport with flights from Managua. Little Corn is boat access only, a 30-minute ride on a fiberglass penga that leaves twice a day. The island has no dock, you wade ashore. Your luggage gets handed down a chain of people standing in waist-deep water. It is not luxury. It is not convenience. It is life at a pace so slow you can hear your own thoughts again. I met an American couple in their early 60s who had been living on Little Corn for 2 years. They bought a house for $95,000. Their solar panel system cost another $4,000. Their monthly expenses were running just over $1,000. They grew tomatoes, bought fish from the guys who pulled nets every morning, composted their waste, collected rainwater in a cistern. They told me they had not used an ATM in 4 months because there was nothing to spend money on. The practical mechanic is to fly into Managua, take the short domestic flight to Big Corn, then the water taxi to Little Corn. Rent a cabana for a month. They run about $400 a month and most include basic solar power and a rain catchment system. Spend the month figuring out if you can handle the isolation. There is no hospital. There is a small clinic staffed by a rotating nurse. Anything serious means a boat to Big Corn and a flight to Managua. Internet is slow and intermittent. Power is solar or generator. If you need Amazon Prime and reliable Netflix, this is not your island. If you can let that go, Little Corn is one of the cheapest waterfront lifestyles left in the Caribbean. The trade-off is political stability. Nicaragua has been run by the same authoritarian president since 2007. There were major protests in 2018 that got violent. The government cracked down hard. Most of that unrest was on the mainland, not the islands, but the risk is real. If political instability makes you nervous, skip Nicaragua. If you can tolerate some risk in exchange for radical affordability, Little Corn is worth serious consideration. Number 5 is in the North Atlantic, a Portuguese island called Terceira in the Azores archipelago. The Azores are roughly 900 miles off the coast of Portugal, a chain of 9 volcanic islands that are technically Europe but feel like the middle of nowhere. Terceira is the second most populated island in the chain. It has about 55,000 residents, a working economy, real infrastructure, hospitals, schools, an international airport with direct flights to Boston and Toronto. A 2-bedroom apartment in the main town of Angra do Heroísmo runs between $120,000 and $180,000. A house outside town with land runs between $200,000 and $320,000. Monthly cost of living for a couple is about $1,700. Portugal has a tax program called the non-habitual resident regime. If you become a legal resident of Portugal and have not been a tax resident there in the past 5 years, you pay 0 tax on most foreign-sourced income for 10 years. Pension income, social security, investment income, all exempt. You only pay Portuguese tax on income earned inside Portugal. For retirees, that is a massive benefit. The mechanic is the D7 visa, Portugal's residency visa for retirees and people with passive income. You need to prove roughly $1,200 a month in stable income. Processing takes about 4 months. You apply at the Portuguese consulate in your home country. Once approved, you get a 2-year residency card. After 5 years of legal residency, you can apply for permanent residency. After 6 years, you can apply for citizenship. Portugal allows dual citizenship, so you do not have to renounce your US or Canadian passport. I spent 3 weeks in the Azores in June 2019, split between Terceira and São Miguel. Terceira felt like rural Ireland crossed with a volcanic moonscape. Green pastures, black lava rocks, stone walls, hydrangeas everywhere. The weather is mild year-round. It does not get hot, it does not get cold. It rains a fair amount, but it is a soft rain, the kind you can walk in without an umbrella if you do not mind getting a little damp. I stayed in a small guest house outside Angra for $45 a night. Ate at family-run restaurants where a full meal with wine cost $12. Bought fresh cheese and bread from a farmer's market for about $6 total. The cost of living is low because the Azores are isolated. Goods cost a bit more than on mainland Portugal because of shipping, but wages are also lower and the local economy adjusts accordingly. The expat community on Terceira is mostly Portuguese mainlanders and a handful of Americans connected to the U.S. Air Force Base on the island. That base has been there since 1943. It is the reason the airport exists. It is also the reason you can get decent health care on the island. The base hospital treats local emergencies under certain agreements, and the Portuguese public hospital in Angra is solid for most non-specialist care. If you need a cardiologist or an oncologist, you fly to Lisbon, but for routine care, Terceira has you covered. The trade-off is weather. The Azores are green because it rains, a lot. If you need 300 days of sunshine a year, this is not your place. If you can handle gray skies and misty mornings and dramatic clouds rolling over volcanic peaks, Terceira is one of the most undervalued islands in the Atlantic. You get European infrastructure, European safety, European healthcare, and a cost of living lower than most of the American South. Number 4 is in the Eastern Caribbean, a small island called Dominica, not to be confused with the Dominican Republic. Dominica is its own country, a former British colony that gained independence in 1978. The island is mountainous, green, lush, covered in rainforest and waterfalls and hot springs. It is not a beach destination. It is a jungle destination. The coastline is mostly black sand and volcanic rock. If you need white sand and turquoise water, go somewhere else. If you want to wake up to the sound of parrots and hike to a boiling lake inside a volcanic crater, Dominica delivers. A small house on Dominica runs between $90,000 and $150,000 depending on location. Monthly cost of living for a couple is about $1,500. The island uses the Eastern Caribbean dollar, which is pegged to the US dollar at a fixed rate. Dominica runs a citizenship by investment program. If you invest $200,000 in approved real estate or make a $100,000 donation to a government fund, you get full citizenship and a passport. That is not a residency visa. That is citizenship. A Dominica passport gives you visa-free or visa-on-arrival access to over 140 countries including the UK and the Schengen zone. For people who want a second passport as part of a broader international strategy, Dominica is one of the cheapest legal paths to get one. I am not recommending this for everyone. Most retirees do not need citizenship, just residency, but the option exists and it is worth knowing about. The easier path is a standard residency permit which you get by purchasing property. Buy a house, apply for residency, get approved in about 60 days. No minimum income requirement, no language test, just proof of property ownership and a clean criminal record. I know a retired nurse from North Carolina who bought a 2-bedroom house in the village of Calabashi on the northeast coast of Dominica for $115,000 in 2019. She got her residency permit in 2020. Her annual property tax is about $180. Her electric bill runs around $90 a month. Water is $25 a month. Internet is $60. Groceries cost her about $400 a month because she buys locally and cooks at home. Her total monthly cost is roughly $1,300. She grows mangoes, avocados, and breadfruit in her yard. She hikes to waterfalls twice a week. She told me she has never felt safer or slept better. The practical mechanic is to fly into Dominica through Barbados or Antigua. There are no direct flights from the US. Once you land, rent a car. The island is small but mountainous and the roads are steep and winding. Spend a week driving the coast, visiting villages, talking to expats. The expat community is small, maybe 500 people, mostly American, Canadian, and British. They cluster in the north near Portsmouth and the east near Calabashi. Find someone who has been there a few years and buy them lunch. You will learn more in one conversation than you will from any website. The trade-off is hurricanes. Dominica got destroyed by Hurricane Maria in 2017. The island lost most of its housing stock and its infrastructure. It is rebuilt, but the memory is fresh. If you buy here, you are buying with the knowledge that a Category 5 storm cannon will happen again. Some people build concrete bunker-style houses with hurricane shutters and steel roofs. Some people accept the risk and build cheaper wood frame structures they can afford to rebuild. Know your risk tolerance before you commit. Number 3 is off the coast of Panama in the Caribbean, a chain of islands called Bocas del Toro. The main island is Isla Colon. It has a town, an airport, grocery stores, restaurants, a hospital, and a surprising number of American and Canadian expats who moved there over the past 20 years. A small two-bedroom house in Bocas town runs between $140,000 and $220,000. A house on one of the outer islands with waterfront access runs between $90,000 and $160,000. Monthly cost of living for a couple is about $1,600. Panama uses the US dollar as its official currency. There is no exchange rate risk. Your debit card works everywhere. Prices are listed in dollars. It is as close to financial seamlessness as you can get outside the United States. Panama has one of the best retiree visa programs in the world. It is called the Pensionado Visa. You need to prove $1,000 a month in lifetime income from a pension or Social Security. That is the only financial requirement. Once approved, you get a resident visa that never expires as long as you maintain the income requirement. You also get discounts, legal discounts written into Panamanian law, 25% off airline tickets, 30% off bus and train fares, 50% off entertainment including movies and concerts, 25% off restaurants, 15% off hospital bills. These are not promotional gimmicks. These are statutory benefits that come with the Pensionado visa. I have met retirees in Panama who save more annually from those discounts than they pay in rent. I visited Bocas del Toro in February 2016 for 10 days. The islands are lush, wet, tropical. It rains almost every afternoon. The mornings are clear and hot. The evenings cool down just enough to sleep without air conditioning if you have a fan. I stayed in a small wooden house on stilts over the water for $35 a night. I ate whole fried snapper with rice and beans for $6. I took water taxis to outer islands where sloths hung in the trees and the only people I saw were locals pulling crab traps. I met a retired cop from New Jersey who bought a house on Isla Carnero, one of the smaller islands, for $135,000 in 2014. He takes a water taxi to Bocas town twice a week for groceries. The rest of the time he fishes, reads, and works on boats for extra cash under the table. He told me his cost of living runs about $1,400 a month, and he has never been happier. The mechanic is to fly into Panama City, then take a short domestic flight to Bocas del Toro. The flight costs about $120 each way and takes an hour. Once in Bocas, rent a place for a month. Furnished rentals run about $600 to $800 a month. Spend that time talking to expats, visiting the outer islands, figuring out what kind of life you actually want. Some people want to be in town near the bars and the restaurants. Some people want to be off-grid on an outer island with solar power and a rainwater catchment system. Both options exist. Figure out which one you are before you buy. The trade-off is infrastructure. Bocas del Toro is not polished. Roads are rough, power goes out, water pressure is inconsistent. Things take longer than they should. If you need everything to work perfectly all the time, you will be frustrated. If you can accept a slower pace and occasional inconvenience in exchange for low cost and high beauty, Bocas is one of the best island deals in the Western Hemisphere. Number 2 is off the coast of Malaysia in Southeast Asia, an island called Penang. Penang is not a remote tropical hideaway. It is a UNESCO World Heritage City with over 700,000 residents, modern hospitals, international schools, shopping malls, and some of the best street food in the world. This is not a deserted beach fantasy. This is affordable urban island living with first-world infrastructure and third-world prices. A modern two-bedroom condo in Georgetown, the main city on Penang, runs between $120,000 and $200,000. Monthly cost of living for a couple including rent, food, transportation, and healthcare is about $1,400. Malaysia has a program called Malaysia My Second Home, or MM2H. It is a long-term residency visa designed for retirees. You need to show roughly $35,000 in liquid assets and about $2,500 a month in income. Once approved, you get a 10-year residency visa that is renewable. You can buy property, import a car, open a bank account, and come and go freely. I spent a month in Penang in November 2018. I rented a studio apartment in Georgetown for $400. I ate hawker stall food every day, char kway teow and nasi kandar and Hokkien mee, meals that cost between $2 and $4. I took the local bus everywhere for about 50 cents a ride. I walked the heritage streets, visited temples, drank coffee in colonial-era cafes. The island is diverse, layered, deeply functional. You have Chinese medicine shops next to Indian textile stores next to Malay mosques. Everyone speaks English because Malaysia was a British colony and English is still the language of business and education. Healthcare is excellent and absurdly cheap. A doctor visit costs about $15, a full blood panel costs $30, an MRI costs $200. If you need specialist care, it is available and affordable. The expat community on Penang is one of the largest in Southeast Asia. Thousands of retirees from Japan, South Korea, Australia, the UK, and the US have moved there under MMTOH. The infrastructure is built to support them. There are expat meetups, expat social groups, expat volunteer organizations. You are not pioneering, you are joining a well-established community. I met a retired accountant from Perth who had been living in Penang for 6 years. He bought a 3-bedroom condo overlooking the ocean for $180,000. His monthly condo fees were $90. His electric bill was about $50. His food costs were under $400 a month because he ate local. His total monthly spend was around $1,100. He told me he travels back to Australia once a year, and the money he saves living in Penang pays for the flight and then some. The practical mechanic is to apply for MMTOH before you move. Hire an agent in Malaysia who specializes in MMTOH applications. Cost is around $2,000 and they handle everything: bank account setup, medical exam, document notarization, submission to immigration. Processing takes about 6 months. Once approved, you fly to Penang, open a local bank account, deposit the required funds, and activate your visa. Then start looking for a place to rent or buy. Do not buy before you spend time on the ground. Rent for 6 months. Penang has distinct neighborhoods and each one has a different vibe. Georgetown is urban and historic. Tanjung Bunga is quiet and beachy. Batu Ferringhi is touristy. Figure out where you fit. The trade-off is distance. Penang is roughly 20 hours of travel from the US East Coast. If you need to get back to the States quickly for a family emergency, you are looking at a long, expensive trip. If you are comfortable with that distance, Penang offers something almost no other island on this list can match: world-class healthcare, reliable infrastructure, cultural diversity, and a cost of living that allows you to live well on a modest pension. Number 1 is off the coast of Ecuador in the Pacific, part of the Galapagos Islands, specifically the island of San Cristobal. Before you say the Galapagos are a protected national park where nobody can live, let me stop you. 4 of the Galapagos Islands have permanent human settlements: Santa Cruz, San Cristobal, Isabela, and Florina. San Cristobal is the capital of the province. It has a town called Puerto Baquerizo Morno with about 6,000 residents, a hospital, schools, a small airport, grocery stores, internet, and a harbor full of sea lions that bark all night. You cannot just move to the Galapagos. Ecuadorian law restricts residency to people born there, people who marry someone born there, or people who qualify under specific economic investment provisions. But if you are willing to start a business, even a small one, and hire local workers, you can apply for residency under Ecuador's Entrepreneur Visa program. A small guest house, a dive shop, a restaurant, anything that contributes to the local economy qualifies. A small concrete house in Puerto Baquerizo Morno runs between $80,000 and $140,000. Monthly cost of living is about $1,300 for a couple. Ecuador uses the US dollar. Food is cheap because Ecuador is an agricultural country. Fresh fish is everywhere and inexpensive. Produce is local and costs almost nothing. The island is expensive to get to but cheap to live on once you are there. Flights from the mainland go through Guayaquil and cost about $400 round trip. That is the filter. Most tourists cannot afford to stay long. Most expats who visit fall in love but assume they cannot live there. The ones who figure out the business visa path get access to one of the most unique places on Earth at a cost of living lower than most of rural North America. I visited San Cristobal in October 2021 for 2 weeks. I stayed in a small hotel that cost $40 a night. I ate at the local market where a plate of rice, fish, plantains, and salad cost $4. I walked to the beach every morning and swam with sea turtles. I hiked to the highlands and saw giant tortoises in the wild. I met a couple from Colorado who had moved to San Cristobal in 2019. They opened a small coffee shop that serves breakfast to tourists and employs 3 local workers. That business qualified them for residency. Their startup cost was about $25,000. They bought a house for $95,000. Their monthly expenses run around $1,200. They told me the hardest part was not the visa process or the cost. It was accepting that they would be far from family and that leaving the island, even for a trip, requires planning and money. But they also said they wake up every day in a place that most people only see in documentaries and they spend less than they did living in Fort Collins. The mechanic is to visit first on a tourist visa. Spend 2 weeks walking around Puerto Baquerizo Morno. Talk to the few expats who live there. Ask what businesses are needed. The island has a steady flow of tourists but limited services. A good guest house, a reliable tour operator, a decent restaurant, these things have value. If you can identify a gap and fill it, you have a path to residency. Hire a lawyer in Quito who specializes in Galapagos residency cases. Expect to pay around $3,000 in legal fees. Expect the process to take a year. It is not easy, but it is possible. And the result is life on an island that is one of the most biodiverse and protected places on the planet at a cost most people spend on rent in Tulsa. The trade-off is isolation. The Galapagos are 600 miles off the coast of Ecuador. Supplies come by boat. Sometimes the boats are late. Sometimes items are out of stock for weeks. You cannot just drive to a big box store. You live with what the island has. If that sounds like a deal breaker, it is. If that sounds like freedom from consumer culture and a return to a simpler, slower way of life, San Cristobal might be the island you did not know you were looking for. While everyone else is draining their retirement accounts trying to afford a one-bedroom condo in Honolulu, you now know 9 islands where you can own property, live well, and spend less per year than most people pay in property taxes in California. Some of these islands trade convenience for cost. Some trade proximity for beauty. Some trade political stability for affordability. None of them are perfect, but perfection is not the goal. The goal is a life you can actually afford that does not feel like a compromise. Drop a comment right now and tell me which of these 9 islands you are seriously considering.